Hacking wireless networks. Hacking wireless network, that means we will do see the concept of this wireless network, and then what are the wireless encryptions we have. Then we will see what are the threats we have. Then we'll see the hacking methodologies, wireless hacking tools, and Bluetooth. Bluetooth is also a wireless technology. Finally, we will see what are the countermeasures and security tools we have, and the penetration testing penetration testing steps we have for doing the penetration test on this wireless network. Now, first, before going into this, we should know the terminology of this wireless. These are some of the words you may have heard about this wireless device, wireless networks. First, GSM. Now, when we talk about GSM, is what it is, a universal system used for mobile transportation for wireless network worldwide. So, whenever you heard about the mobile network, we do the calling and all that. These are what all wireless networks, and these are all called GSM. Then we have bandwidth. Bandwidth means describes the amount of information that may be broadcasted over a connection. So just like the wired network, we have a bandwidth in wireless network also. So whatever the amount of information or data we can broadcast over a connection, it is called the bandwidth. Then we talk about BSSID. Now this BSSID means what? It is basic service set identifier. This is a MAC address of an access point that has set up a basic service set network. So when we have access point, now access point means what? Access point is used to connect the wireless devices to a wireless network in an infrastructure mode. Actually, we have two modes in wireless network. We have ad hoc mode and we have infrastructure mode. Ad hoc mode means what? Where all the devices, or we can say two devices, directly connect each other to send and receive the data. Two or more, we can say two or more devices, or two devices connect together directly to send the data and receive the data. Now, in infrastructure mode of network in wireless, we use a centralized device which is used to send and receive the data for other devices, and that device is called access point. It works like a switch in wired network, but it does not work like a switch in wired network. It actually works like a hub in wired network. In wired network, we have hubs which do what? Which do the broadcast. So it also do the broadcast here in this access point. So this access point, wireless access point, basically is a centralized device which is used to connect multiple wireless devices. So if one device wants to send the data to other wireless device, then it will send the data to access point, and then access point will send the data to the other device. And the access point is also used to connect the wired network to the wireless network. That means we are getting the internet or network connection from the wired, from the one side, and then we wanted to spread the network through wireless. So we can add the wireless access point into the wire, and then this wireless access point will make the network wireless for the other wireless devices. So it is also used to connect the wired network to the wireless network. So this is what the access point is, and that access point has a unique MAC address. Just like every network device has a unique address, unique physical address, MAC address, so that access point also has a unique MAC address, and that address is called basic service set identifier. Basic service set is a network type, and that network type which is set by the access point, and the ID of that basic service set, it is actually the MAC address of that access point. Then ISM band, this means what? A set of frequency for the international industries, scientific and medical communities. This is ISM, like industrial, scientific and medical. This band is made available. This is a radio frequency band which is made available by the authorities of radio frequencies. They have made this available for public use, and this is where all the wireless devices are configured. Then hotspot. Hotspots are the places where wireless network is available for public use. So if the wireless network is available for public use, those places or those wireless network, it is called hotspot. Association. This association means the process of connecting a wireless device to an access point. So when a wireless device connect to a wireless access point, it is called association. Then here, orthogonal frequency division multiplexing, OFDM. This is a method of encoding digital data on multiple carrier frequencies. So this is a method of encoding the digital data on these multiple carrier frequencies, because these wireless network uses the radio frequencies to send and receive the data. So this is a method of doing that. Then we have other method, direct sequence spread spectrum, DSSS. It is the original data signal, that is original data signal is multiplied with the pseudo random noise spreading code. So this is also a method where the random original data signal is multiplied with the pseudo random noise spreading. Then we have another method called frequency hopping spread spectrum, FHSS. This is a method of transmitting radio signals by rapidly switching a carrier among many frequency channels. Frequency channels, that means those radio frequency channels. So these are the terminology we have in wireless networks. Now, what wireless networks we have? What is wireless network? So basically, this wireless Wi-Fi refers to the wireless local area network, that is WLAN also we can say. It is based on IEEE 802.11 standard. Actually, in old days, that radio frequencies was not available for public use. It was not available for public use, but since 1999, it was available as a ISM band, that is for industrial and scientific and medical use. So it has been made available for public use, and they have make available some frequencies from it. Frequencies are like for 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz frequencies are available for public use. Now, as soon as it is set, the standard is set for using the wireless radio frequencies for the public use, this IEEE, it is the organization which sets the standard for the network devices. It has started the standard, it has set the standard for these wireless devices and wireless network by using those available frequency bands. And they have started the 802.11. They have set the 802.11 standard for this wireless network, so that any vendor or any device creator or any device manufacturer, when they make the devices, so they will make based on this standard, so that each and every devices from different companies or different vendors can do the communication to each other. And that is why this IEEE sets the standards. So 802 is a standard for the LAN network, and in the LAN network there is 802.11, which is for the wireless LAN. It is a widely used technology for wireless communication across a radio channel. So this is a widely used technology. Now, why it is getting very famous? Because of the ease of use we have in wireless devices such as personal computer, video game console, smartphone, etc., and use Wi-Fi to connect to a network resources such as the internet via the wireless network access point. Now it is getting very famous because of the advantages we have in wireless network. Now, what are the advantages we have here? First, installation is fast and easy and eliminates wiring through walls and ceilings. So there is no wire we have to set up. We can easily install these wireless network. It is easier to provide connectivity in areas where it is difficult to lay cable. That means, like for example, on the hotel rooms, airports, for those public areas where the people want to get the internet, so it is very difficult to put the cable there. Just imagine if suppose there is no wireless network and we use cables to get the internet. So in suppose we go to airport and you want to connect to internet, then you will get a one cable there, and then you have to run with that cable everywhere. It is not possible that you will move that with that cable everywhere. You have to sit somewhere and you have to work with that. But now, because of the wireless, we can do what? It can be possible to provide the network connectivity where it is not possible to give with the wire cable. So with the wireless network, anyone can move around with the range of that wireless device and can get the internet connection or can get the network. Access to the network can be from anywhere within range of an access point. So it is possible to access the network from anywhere within the range of the access point. And public places like this, airport, libraries, schools, or even coffee shops offer you constant internet connection using the wireless LAN. It was not possible to give the network, the LAN connection, the internet connection through the wireless, through the wired network to these public places. It was very difficult. Because we have wireless network or wireless LAN, it is now we have possible. But with this all advantages, there are some disadvantages also available in wireless network. First is the security. Security is a big issue and may not meet exemptions. That means there is a big issue of security here with the wireless network, and it is not exemptions. As the number of computers on the network increases, the bandwidth suffers also. Wi-Fi enhancement can require new wireless card and or access points also, and electronic equipments can interfere with the Wi-Fi networks. Now these are the disadvantages we have. In these all disadvantages, the important disadvantage is about security. Other disadvantages are like for you increase the devices and you will lose some bandwidth. Your bandwidth will decrease. Okay, it is okay. Wireless, whenever you change you advance or enhance the Wi-Fi network, so you have to enhance the Wi-Fi card for every devices or access point. Then other electronic equipments can also interfere with this wireless network, like microwave, radio wave, whatever the devices or electronic devices who can create the radio wave or microwave frequencies, they can interfere with this wireless network. But it is also okay, but the important thing is what? The security. Security is a big problem in wireless network. Now what is the problem here? Now first and the most big problem is what? This wireless network works like a bus topology. It works like a bus topology. That means what? Every device sends it as a when some device wants to send the data to some other device, it sends it like a broadcast. There is no unicast here. That means when one device sends the data to other device, it sends it as a broadcast. And same as for the AP side, like if one device wants to send the data to the AP access point, it will send it as a broadcast. And if the AP wants to send it to the device, then also it send it as a broadcast. Because there is no wires here, so it is not a directional communication. It is non-directional. Non-directional, that means it is not guided. So because there is no wire, it is not guided. So if suppose the AP wants to send data to some device, so it is not possible to send it guidedly or unicast. It has to send the data within the range. So whatever the wireless device it is if it is want to send data to someone, so it will send the data within the range of within the range of that device, and the data will go within the range of that device everywhere. Now that is a security problem here, that if the attacker is there and if the attacker wants to sniff the data, then it does not have to connect to the network. Even it does not have to connect to the network, it has to be just within the range of that network. It has to be in the range to sniff all the data. So it does not have to connect any wire, does not have to authenticate itself to the device, it does not need to do anything, it just have to be in the range of the devices. So when the attacker put its own device within the range of the network, it can get all the packets. If suppose you go to airport or these libraries where you get the free access points, You just go there and open your wireless device and start sniffing there. You will see lots of data there. You will see data for everyone. So attackers just have to be in the range of this network, and it can get everything. So what we have to do with this, what we can do with this, we can provide security by using the encryptions. But that is also, attacker can do what? It can use the different technologies to decrypt the information. But it can see those information which is not secure. So which is not secure and which is easily accessible. That is the big problem in this wireless network. So attacker does not have to connect to the network. Like if you are having a wired network, then attacker has to connect the wire, like it has to connect its device into the network. Otherwise it is not possible for the hacker to get any data. Even it will do the attack to connect into the network and get the data. It will do the attack or different replay attacks to do and get the device in man in the middle attack to sniff the network. But here it does not have to do anything. It can just sniff everything. So that is the disadvantage. That is the big disadvantage here we have in the wireless network. We can have wireless network at home and public places. Home, that means we can see that we set up the network there and we can use, like everyone in the home, they can use easily. We can set a Wi-Fi network at home, and this allowed to be wherever you want with your laptop, iPad and handheld devices, and not have to make holes for or hide Ethernet cable. So you don't have to make any holes in your house, in your walls. You don't have to lay any cables there. You can get the network from everywhere. And also for the public places, you can find a free or paid Wi-Fi accesses available in coffee shops, shopping malls, bookstores, offices, airports, terminals, schools, hotels, and other public places. Whether they are giving free or they are giving with the paid, but you can get the free access. You can get the open public places. You can get the wireless network. Types of wireless network we have. Now first we have extension to a wired network. Extension to a wired network, that means first it is coming, the network is coming from the internet and it is a broadband network or internet network, whatever. Now this network is coming through the wire. Now what we want to make it wireless, so what we do, we connect it through we can connect that cable to the access point, and access point has one port for internet connection, for WAN connection or wired connection. So we connect that port into that port, and then with the help of the wireless device, it will make the network wirelessly. We can connect multiple other access points also. It can be the extension point. We can say it is the extension point. So it can be the extension point for the wired network, and also we can add another access point as an extension also. So we can say it is the extension to a wired network. Then we can have the multiple access points. Multiple access points is also same, but it is also doing what? It is an extension of the wired network, but we are using multiple access points. Now multiple access point we use where suppose the users are mobile, like users are moving from one place to other place, and the place is very big. For example, you go to airport, and in airport, suppose you start from the one end and you go to the last end of the terminal, you will still get the wireless network. You will get the same wireless network. Why? Because they have set up the multiple access points for the same network. So all those multiple access points, you just don't have to authenticate every time. You just connect in the one with the same name, and then it will be connected to wherever you go. And remember, the access point has a range, so it is not like that one access point is covering the whole terminal or the whole building. It is not possible for one access point. So basically, when you are having a big area to cover, and suppose you are having a multiple floors to cover, then you can do what? You can set up the multiple access point. Then we have LAN to LAN wireless network. Now in this kind of communication, like one area in one building we have a LAN network, in other building we have a LAN network, but we don't want to set up, we don't want to connect the wire from this building to that building. So we can do what? We can connect those buildings together by using the wireless network. We can set up the wireless device on one side and set up the wireless device from the other side, and then this wireless devices will connect each other and connect these two LANs. Then also we have 3G 4G hotspot also. Hotspot, that means we are having dongles available which act as a modem. Those wireless dongles basically act as a modem. They do what? They convert the mobile network, which is analog signals, to the digital network and digital signals, and set that digital signal for the wireless network. So we can use these 3G or 4G USB dongles to connect the mobile network and make our device network available. Like we can make our device as a wireless device, wireless network we can make by using the 3G 4G, this USB dongle. We connect it to our machine and then we can use the internet, or if we want to make that internet available for others, so we can configure the 3G hotspot, and then other devices can also use that internet. And these are the wireless standards we have. So IEEE has configured us, he has set the standard of 802.11. Now time and time they are getting, they did what? They advanced those standards by using these different sub standards. So they have make advancement of these standards. So 802.11 is basically, it is fixed for the wireless network. In that 802.11 we have 802.11 A, B, G, N. These are for the different type of wireless network it supports. For example, 802.11a, it is configured to use 5 gigahertz frequency. It uses the method of OFDM modulation, and it uses the speed, it gives the speed up to 54 Mbps, and the range for the network is from 25 feet to 75 feet. Now the range can be affected and speed also can be affected by the environment. Remember always this wireless standard, always it is the standard fixed for the maximum, but it is not compulsory that you will get all the you will get the full speed or you will get the full range. It will affect by the environment. Then 802.11b, which works on 2.4 gigahertz frequency, and it uses the technology for modulation is DSSS. Speed it can give up to 11 Mbps, but it can go up to big range. It can go up to 150 feet to 150 feet. Then we have 802.11g. It works on 2.4 gigahertz and it uses both OFDM and DSSS, can give speed up to 54 Mbps, and it also 150 feet distance it can cover. Then 802.11i, this is to defines the WPA2 enterprise and WPA2 personal for Wi-Fi. Basically this 802.11i is set for the security. Remember when they have designed this wireless network, they have not thought about the security. At that old times there was nobody was thinking about the security problems which they can create. So that time when they design it, they just design it for connectivity, they just don't design it for the security purpose. So after that, when they have faced some problems, when we have problems about the security, then they have released this 802.11 standard for the security and securing the wireless network. In this 802.11 standard, these are there are definition for how to secure the wireless network, which is WPA or WEP securities we have. Then we have 802.11n standard, and this is it works on both 80 or 2.4 and 5 gigahertz both. It uses OFDM and it can give speed up to 54 Mbps and it can go up to 100 meters. Then we have 802.16. Now this one is a different standard. This one is actually for the wireless MAN network. This is not for the LAN network, it is actually for the MAN network. MAN network, that means metropolitan area network. That network, the network which we spread all over the city. So this is for that MAN network. So if you want to spread the network within the city by using the wireless technology, so it is a standard for this is the standard set for that. It is called 802.16 WiMAX. It uses different frequencies 10 and 66, and it can give the speed up to 70 to 1000 Mbps, and also it can go for the long distance. It can go for 30 miles up to. Then we have Bluetooth. Now Bluetooth is also a wireless network, wireless technology. Before this wireless technology, Bluetooth was used. Nowadays Bluetooth is still working to connect some different devices. So it has a frequency, it works on the frequency of 2.4 gigahertz. Then also it can give up to speed up to 1 to 3 Mbps. Then it can range from 25 feet. So it can give the range up to 25 feet. So these are the different standards of wireless network we have. Now the next thing is service set identifier, SSID. Now SSID is what? First, SSID is basically the name of that wireless network. Now when we configure the name of the wireless network, we define the name of the wireless network, and that is called what? SSID. SSID, if you suppose open your wireless Wi-Fi finder, so you will see within your wireless device range, you will see all the available wireless routers or wireless networks, and those networks will identify themselves by using this SSID. For example, when I go to my network here, so I can see these names. These names are for the different wireless network. Though these names are basically the SSID. It is called SSIDs. So first, SSID is a token to identify the 802.11 Wi-Fi network, and by default it is the part of the frame header sent over a wireless local area network. So basically whatever the packet sent on the network or within the range of the network by the AP or the other devices, it in the header it is having this SSID information. And that is why when we go to Wi-Fi finder and when you check this, so we can see these names because it is under the header of that network. So whatever the packet my device is receiving within the range, so it is getting those packets, and from that packets it is giving me these names from the header. So in the header of the packet these names are there. Then it acts as a single shared identifier between the access point and client, and it is also used to do the authentication also for the open network. So it is single shared identifier for the access point and the client. So when the client wants to connect some AP, so it will send the request by using the SSID of that AP. For example, when I see these networks here, and if I want to connect this network, so when I click here and I say connect this, so my device will do what? My device will send a request to that AP by using that SSID, because all within the range I can see all the other SSIDs also. I can see other network are also available. So if suppose I want to click or I want to connect this one, I send the request to this one, so my device will send the request to all over the all these devices. It will send the request to all these devices. So basically my request will go to all these devices because they are within my range, but nobody will accept my request. Only this SSID will accept, because in the request of my in my request I am sending a request for this SSID. So in my request also there is a SSID there. So this SSID is basically the single shared identifier between the AP and the client. So when the client responses, so client also responses with this SSID. So I know, my device will know, and AP will also know that which device we are connecting. Then access point continuously broadcast the SSIDs, and if enabled, for the client machine to identify the presence of wireless network. So it continuously broadcasts, whatever our AP is continuously broadcasting these SSIDs, and it is reaching to everywhere within the range, and it is enabled so that those client machines or client other devices in the wireless network can identify the AP and identify the network. Then SSID is a human readable text string with a maximum length of 32 bytes. So as we can see that SSID is a simple human readable name that we can configure, and it can be configured up to 32 bytes. Then if SSID of the network is changed, reconfigure of the SSID on every host is required, and is every user of the network configures the SSID into their system. So because this SSID is actually used for connecting the devices, so if suppose I configure, if I change the SSID from my router, my AP, then what? All the devices which is using that AP, they have to also change the SSIDs, name of the SSID. Otherwise, they will not be able to connect, because they will still searching for the other SSID, the old SSID, and the AP is now working on some other SSID. A non-secure access mode allows client to connect to the access point using the configured SSID, a blank SSID, or an SSID configured as any. So if suppose we are having the non-secure wireless network or wireless access, that means there is no authentication mechanism set, there is no password set. So the authentication will done based on the SSID. So basically when you connect to that network, so when suppose you see here that in your Wi-Fi finder, you see that when you click that, you will see that these are the network we have available, and if some network is not showing this lock symbol, that means it is not secure. It is not secured, and it is not secured, like this one. So what you will do, you will click on this, and your connection will be done based on this name. This is this SSID name. So what your machine will do, when you click on that SSID, your machine, your device will send the request for that SSID. And remember, the request will go to everyone within the range. All the APs will receive the request, but nobody will accept, because the SSID, the request is for that particular SSID. So only that access point which is having that SSID will reply, and it will reply and it will say you are authenticated, because there is no security there. So only because of the SSID is these two machines will do the communication. Then security concerns arise when the default values are not changed, as these units can be compromised. Remember, whenever you configure your wireless device, and if you have not changed the default settings, then you will be in a problem. The SSID remains secret only on the closed network when with no activity that is inconvenient to the legitimate users. So this SSID will remain secret only two conditions. One, if there is no communication happening. So if there is no communication happening, so the devices will not share any data, like it is not sending or receiving any packet. So if someone try to see that whether there is any wireless network available here or not, so it will not see any SSID there. Why? Because there is no communication is happening. So AP is not sending any packet. So in that packet there is no header. In that packet header there is SSID name. So if the packet is not going and coming, that means there is no SSID visible. So it will remain secret. It will remain secret where there is no communication or no activity happening. And one more thing, we have an option when we configure our wireless AP, we have an option there to not broadcast the SSID, not broadcast the SSID name, and that means what? It will be still remain secret, because when we select and we configure it, to not broadcast the SSID with the packet header. So our device, our AP will do what? It will remove the SSID name from the packet header. So unless the activity will be there, still we will not see that SSID. Now when you don't see the SSID, like suppose I try to see what are the networks available here, and if I don't see that particular SSID here, because it is not broadcasting, so what I can do, I have to configure it manually. I have to configure my device to connect that SSID manually, and for that I have to know the right name, exact name, and the password and security key for that particular SSID or particular wireless network or SSID. So if there is no activity is happening, so SSID will remain secret, but that is not good for the legitimate user, because the legitimate user will not able to see the SSID and they will say that I cannot connect because there is no network available. Now if they don't know how to configure manually. Now Wi-Fi authentication mode. So how the authentication happens in wireless network? So first, open system authentication process. Now open system authentication process, there where there is no security, where there is no security configured, and there is no password or anything configured there. So in this case, what happened? Our device or client device will first search, will do the probe request. Probe request, that means it will check what are the wireless networks available here. So first it will check, and when it sees some wireless access network, like when it sees that there is some networks there. Now if it sees there is a lock symbol there, that means these are not open, these are closed. This means that these are secured. So if there is no lock there, then what it will do, it will select that access point to connect. Now when you click on that and select to connect, then what your device will do, it will send the probe request for that device, for that access point. Now that access point will do what? It will respond with the probe. It will send the probe response with the security parameters. Now security parameters are what? It is not, there is no authentication, it is open system authentication. So it will send the parameter saying that it is the open system authentication. So this, our client device will send open system authentication request. It sends that I want to connect, then there is no authentication system, it is actually open. So it just directly send the request here that I want to connect. Now this device, this AP will do what? It will respond with the open system authentication response. And then what? This our device will do what? The client device will do what? It will do the association request. It will send the association request with the security parameters, whatever it is, open system parameters. So this access point, in response, it sends the association response and it says that you are authenticated, you are connected. And this AP is connected to the switch or modem, and through the switch or modem it is connected to the internet. So this client will do connect to the internet through the wireless access point. Then we have shared key authentication process. Now shared key authentication process, where we configure the key on the access point, and the same key is used to connect that access point and to authenticate the access point. And the client will have to provide the same key, and that is called the shared key. That means we configure the key, security key on the access point, and then we share the key with the authenticated users. Share the key, that means we can go to them and tell them that this is the key. We can send them the message that this is the key. We can send them the mail that this is the key. Anyhow, we have to share the key with the which is allowed to access this network. Now, what is the process here for connecting it? So first, again, client will send the authentication request to AP. Now AP will do what? AP sends a challenge text. It sends a text here, a normal random text, to the client machine. Now the client machine will do what? Client machine will encrypt the challenge text and send it back to AP. And it will encrypt it by using the shared key. And it must use the shared key which is actually configured on the AP. if it is using different key, for example you are giving wrong password, then what happened, the text which is sent by the AP will be encrypted with that wrong password. So password will be the key, the shared key will be the it is actually the key, we can say the password will become the key for decrypting and encrypting that text. So first it will send, the text will be sent by the AP in a plain text, and then the client will do what, by using its own key password it will encrypt that text. So client encrypts the challenge text and send it back to AP. Now AP do what, AP decrypts the challenge text, and if the correct, then authentication authenticate the clients. That means this AP will do what, it will check the, it will get the this encrypted text, and the AP will try to decrypt the text by using its own key which is configured in the access point. If the key is same, then it will be decrypt, and if the key is not same, it will not decrypt. So the text which is sent by the client encrypted with its own key, it must be the same key which is configured on the AP. Otherwise you will send the key, you will send the text with the wrong key, then the AP will not able to decrypt the key, and then it will say what, you are not authenticated. And if it is decrypted, that means the key is right, so it is saying what, you are authenticated and you can allow to log in, and then client connects to the network. So in this case we are using the shared key which is configured on the AP, and the same key is used by the client, and we have to share the key with the different mediums, like we can send the key to message, through the mail, or we can just call the client and say that this is the key. Now this is also not that secure, because the key we have to send to the user. So we have to send the key to the user that this is the key. Now we have this centralized authentication also. So in this Wi-Fi authentication process, it is using the centralized authentication server. Now there is no need to send the key, or there is no need to share the key with the clients. So what they will do here, they create in this network we create the Radius server. Radius server is for the remote authentication. It is a remote authentication server which is used to authenticate not only wireless network, it is used to authenticate different wired network and wired services also. It is basically used to do the authentication for the centralized device, like centralized authentication, where we have multiple devices, and multiple devices wants to do the authentication, so they can do the authentication through the single Radius server. So how it works here? So the process is very simple. First the client will send the request for the AP. It will send the request to AP that I want to connect this network. Now the AP will do what? It will send an EAP request to determine the identity. EAP request, that means this AP is saying that I am configured with the Radius server to authenticate, and you have to provide your authentication request according to this EAP request. So what the client will do, it will send the request EAP response with the identity. That means with the response it will send its own identity. Identity, that means the username and password. Now that will go to the access point, and access point will do what? It will forward the identity to the Radius server using the uncontrolled port. Uncontrolled port, and the request go to the Radius server. Now the Radius server and this access point will be configured. We have to configure the Radius server to provide the authentication to this access point, and we have to configure the access point to use this Radius server for authentication. So for that it uses a default port here and the IP. So we have to configure in the access point that this is the Radius server IP and this is the port number for connecting to this Radius server. And also we provide the shared secret here to this AP to do the communication securely. So we configure the shared key in access point and Radius server, same key. When they do the communication to each other, they do the communication securely. Now the request sent to the Radius server. Now Radius server will check its own database and then sends a request to wireless client via the AP specifying the authentication mechanism to be used. So it will send the authentication mechanism request to the AP, through the AP it will send it to the client. Now the wireless client responds to the Radius server with its own credential via the AP. That is what the IP address and the username and the password, and then Radius server will check its own database and sends an encrypted authentication key to the AP if the credentials are accepted. So it will send what? A unique key to the AP, and AP will send it to the client, and by using that key they will secure the communication from the client to the server or to the access point. Using this keys, these public and private keys. So these keys will be given by the Radius server to the AP, and from the AP it will send it to the client. So when client send any data to AP, it will encrypt the data by using that key, and access point and AP will decrypt the data by using its own key. And then when AP sends the data, it will send it by encrypting the data by using that its own key, and the client will decrypt the data by using its own key. And this how they secure their communication. Now for configuring the wireless devices, we have antennas. Antennas are also important. So we have these types of wireless antennas. First, directional antenna. This is used to broadcast and obtain radio waves from a single direction. So this is also important for the organizations to configure the device, configure the network by using the directional antenna. Because if the attacker comes in the range of network, then it can do the sniffing. So we can configure the network by using the directional antenna also. Then we have omnidirectional antenna. This provides a 360-degree horizontal radiation pattern, and it is used in wireless base stations. So this is what to provide the wireless network to all over the range, like everywhere, from right to left to up to down, 360-degree. Then periodic grid antenna. It is based on the principle of a satellite dish, but it does not have a solid backing. They can pick up Wi-Fi signals 10 miles or more. This periodic grid antenna is used to get the network from very long distance. As you can see in this image on this rooftop, it is what the grid antenna, periodic grid antenna. It is to capture the network from the long distance. Then we have Yagi antenna. Yagi is a unidirectional antenna commonly used in communication for a frequency band of 10 gigahertz to VHF and UHF. So this is what Yagi antenna. Then we have dipole antenna. This is bidirectional antenna used to support client connection rather than side-to-side application. It looks like the same the bidirectional antenna, like we have this unidirectional or bidirectional going from everywhere, two-way. It is called dipole antenna. Now the wireless encryption and the types of encryption we have. Now remember, when the wireless standard was set, that time it was not secured. It was not secured and the security part was not defined. So after it, when it faces the problem of security, they have started the security part. And for securing it, what we have the encryption. Otherwise, you remember what happened if the attacker comes within the range of this wireless network, it can see everything. So the security is what we can do is to encrypt the data. Even if the attacker gets the data, it will not be easy for the attacker to distract or decrypt the data or see the data, because we are using the wireless encryption. Now what we have here is first WEP. We have WEP. It was the first standard set, but it is also, when it was set, it was very difficult to crack. or difficult to hack, but now it is very easy. This WEP is an encryption algorithm for IEEE 802.11 wireless network, and it is an old and original wireless security standard which can be cracked easily. So we can say that it can be cracked very easily. So because it can be cracked very easily, now we have WPA, wireless equivalent privacy. This WEP is wireless equivalent privacy, and WPA is the wireless protection network. It is actually for protecting it, and it is what it is the next. It is the advanced wireless encryption protocol, and it uses the TKIP, MIC, and AES encryptions, and also uses a 48-bit IV, that is initialization vector, and 32-bit CRC and TKIP encryption for wireless security. Now this WPA actually has two options: WPA personal and WPA enterprise. WPA personal is work on pre-shared key. WPA personal works on pre-shared key, and it is designed to support the backward compatibility. Backward compatibility, that means those devices which works on WEP authentication. In WEP authentication there is pre-shared key. So it uses pre-shared key authentication to authenticate the devices. So when that devices get upgraded with the WPA authentication mechanism, then it can do support the backward compatibility. That means it can do the authentication, it can provide the authentication for those devices which do the authentication on WEP devices. It has what? WPA personal, which works same like WEP. It has a pre-shared key architecture to authenticate the client, but it is having a problem here. It is not having a problem like the WEP, because it is using the advanced encryption technology. It uses the advanced encryption algorithms like AES or TKIP or MIC to secure the network, and it uses 48-bit IV, 32-bit CRC and TKIP encryption for wireless security. So it is the advanced wireless encryption protocol, advanced than WEP, but it uses what WPA personal uses is still the pre-shared key. Now in WPA we have enterprise version also. So WPA personal, it is for the backward compatibility which works on pre-shared key, and WPA enterprise is it is a new technology. It uses a radius server for authentication. So WPA2 enterprise is for the centralized authentication, which uses the radius server for authentication. It uses the same IV, same bit IV, same CRC, same encryption protocols, but it uses what? The centralized authentication by using the radius server. Then after WPA we have WPA2. WPA2 is the next level. It is like the advanced version of WPA. Now WPA2 uses AES in 128-bit. It uses 128-bit of AES encryption and CCMP for wireless data encryption instead of TKIP. And this one is what? This one is also having two options, personal and enterprise. Personal is same as what the pre-shared key it uses to do the backward compatibility, and enterprise means it uses the radius server. It uses the centralized authentication for doing the authentication. So we can see this here, WPA2 enterprise, it integrates the EAP standard with WPA2 encryption. Now what is EAP? So EAP is what supports multiple authentication methods such as token cards, Kerberos, certificates, etc. So EAP is defined, it is defining what the type of authentication method we can use. So we can use the authentication of token cards, or we can use the Kerberos authentication, we can use the certificates authentication also. And for doing that we can use the radius server. So radius server is it is a centralized authentication and authorization management server. So it can use the authentication mechanisms such as token card, it can use the Kerberos protocol to do the authentication, it can also use the certificates for authenticating. Now what this WPA is using for the security, it is using TKIP. It is what? It is a security protocol used in WPA as a replacement for WEP. So WEP was actually the encryption algorithm, but it was very weak and it can be cracked very easily. So in place of that encryption, it uses TKIP, and also it uses AES, and this is AES is what? It is a symmetric key encryption used in WPA2 as a replacement of TKIP. And also in WPA2 it uses what? CCMP. CCMP utilizes 128-bit keys with a 48-bit initialization vector for replay detection. So it also uses more than 48-bit, it uses 128-bit. Now remember, as a bit encryption increase, difficulty will be increase. So if the encryptions increase with the bits, so it is getting difficult to decrypt also. And what we have this 802.11i, and this is what it is, an IEEE amendment that specifies the security mechanism for 802.11 wireless network. So all these mechanism like WEP, WPA2, WPA, WPA personal enterprise, TKIP, all these things are defined under this 802.11i standard. Now what is WEP encryption? So first it is called wired equivalent privacy, WEP, and it is an IEEE 802.11 wireless protocol which provides security algorithm for data confidentiality during wireless transmission. Now WEP uses 24-bit initialization vector. Remember, it is only 24-bit, but the WPA use 48-bit initialization vector, and this is to form stream cipher RC4. This is the cipher for the streaming, like when you have continuously data sending, streaming. So this is the algorithm for encrypting that data, RC4. It is for the confidentiality, and the CRC32 for checksum for integrity of wireless transmission. Now WEP, it has 64-bit which uses the 40-bit key. It has 128-bit which uses the 104-bit key, and 256-bit also available of WEP which uses 232-bit key size. But all of these has a significant vulnerabilities and design flaws. And why? Because it was developed without academic or public review and reviews from cryptologists. So it was just designed, just created for it, and because of that WEP encryption can be easily cracked. So if anyone is using this WEP encryption or this for authentication in wireless, it is on risk and it can be cracked within 10 seconds. So anyone can get the encryption key within 10 seconds, and it can decrypt the whole communication. It can connect the device into the network also. So how this WEP works? So first, CRC32 checksum is used to calculate a 32-bit integrity check value, that is ICV, for the data, which in turn is added to the data frame. So first it checks this integrity data and then it will add it into the data. Then what? Next, 24-bit arbitrary number known as initialization vector is added to WEP key, and WEP key and IV are together called as WEP seed. So first it do what? It uses the data in ICV and create this CRC32 checksum, and then it will add it into the ICV. So first it will use the data, run with this algorithm and generate the value and add that value into ICV. Then what? It create 24-bit arbitrary number known as initialization vector, and that is what here. And how it is created here? So it created with this W from the WEP key store, key 1, key 2, key 3. It uses the WEP key and IV, and then together it is called what? WEP seed. and then it will transfer the seed into the cipher of RC4 to doing the ciphering, and then what, it will run that into key stream to generate the key XOR algorithm, and then it will put it into the cipher text. But there is one more thing you can see here, the IV which is putting here before encrypting, before running through this cipher, it is also sending the same key with the data. It is adding the same IV here with the data, and in the color red you can see that this is the problem in WEP. It is actually using the same IV here with the data, which is what before it was ciphered, before it was encrypted by this RC4. So it uses the same here under the data, and this WEP encryption packet frame body of the MAC frame. So it will added this and as a body of the MAC address frame. So this total packet will be added there, and then it will send. So after this IV, the WEP seed is used as the input to RC4 algorithm to generate the key stream. Key stream is a bitwise XOR with the combination of the data and ICV to produce the encrypted data. So like this, it will do the cipher, then key stream, then it will provide this here to key the create the cipher text here. Then the IV field, that is IV plus pad plus kid, is added to the cipher text to generate a MAC frame. Then it will be added here into this to generate the MAC frame. That means this data, this generated this here, and this IV key, and then the data, it will totally combine here with this cipher text like pad and kid, everything. But actually it is sending this IV again from here. That is the problem. Then what is WPA? Now WPA is what? It is a Wi-Fi protected access, and this is a data encryption method for WLANs, wireless LANs, based on 802.11 standard, and it is a snapshot of 802.11i, that is under development, providing stronger encryption and enabling PSK or EAP authentication. PSK means pre-shared key, and EAP, that means the authentication, extensive authentication protocol. It is actually called extensive authentication protocol, which can use the different authentication mechanism like token. It can use the Kerberos protocol. It can use the certificates for authentication. So WPA use TKIP, that is temporal key integrity protocol. This TKIP utilizes the RC4 stream cipher encryption with 128-bit keys and 64-bit MIC integrity check. This TKIP mitigates vulnerability by increasing the size of the IV and using mixing functions. Now remember, it is not using the same IV again and again. That is what this WEP was doing. It was using the IV here with this WEP key to do the cipher, and then same IV it is using here in the data directly, but it is not doing here in WEP. It is not doing that. It is mitigating this vulnerability by increasing the size of the IV and using mixing function, and it also uses the mixing function for it. Then the 128-bit temporal key, that is TKIP. It is under TKIP. The client starts with a 128-bit temporal key, TK, that is then combined with the client's MAC address and with an IV to create a key stream that is used to encrypt data via the RC4. So by combining all these, they create the key stream, and by using that key stream with the RC4 algorithm, they encrypt the rest of the data. So it implements a sequence counter to protect against replay attack. Now WPA is an enhance of WEP. TKIP enhanced WEP by adding a rekeying mechanism to provide fresh encryption and integrity keys. Temporal keys are changed for every 1,000 packets. This makes TKIP protected network more resistant to cryptolytic attack involving key uses. So it also do what? After every 10,000 packet, it changes the key. so that the attacker will not be able to guess the key and guess the algorithm it using and guess the key and method. So how it work? First, the temporal encryption key transmit address and TKIP sequence number TSC is used as input to RC4 algorithm to generate the key stream. So it uses this here, all these things with the mixing key, and with everything it becomes what? WEP seed, and then it will use the RC4 algorithm to cipher it and then generate the key stream, and this key stream is going to be used to cipher the to encrypt the data. Then what? MAC service data unit, MSDU, and message integrity checker MIC are combined using Michel algorithm. Then it will combine those things by using the Michel algorithm. Here it is data to transmit whatever the data is to be transmit here. So how it is going to transmit? It is using this with the Michel algorithm, and then algorithm, then it will do what? It will hash that thing, and then what? The combination of MSDU and MIC is fragmented to generate MAC protocol data unit, MPDU. So it will fragment it here, and then it will generate this MPDU. Now then what? A 32-bit integrity check value ICV is calculated for that MPU. So after this, it will generate this 32-bit checksum value here, and then the combine of MPDU and ICV is bitwise XORed with key stream to produce the encrypted data. So it uses this, and then they will use this bitwise encrypt this bitwise. It uses this with the XOR method here. There is OR or XOR method. So with that it will do create the key stream, and then it produces the encryption of data. So the IV is added to the encrypted data to generate the MAC frame. Finally, after that it will add the IV data. Now this initialization vector is also coming from here, and it is added here. But remember, it is using this IV, not only IV, it is using EIV also here, which is doing what? Which is mixing the IVs. And the temporal key which uses in the WPA and WPA2. Now this in WPA and WPA2, the encryption key, that is temporal keys, are derived during the four-way handshake, and encryption key are derived from the PMK, that is derived during the EAP authentication session. In the EAP success message, PMK is sent to the AP but is not directed to Wi-Fi client, as it has derived its own copy of the PMK. So what is happening here? AP sends an unknowns to client, which uses it to construct the pairwise transient key, that is PTK. Then client responds with its own nonce value, S nonce, to the AP together with the message integrity code, that is MIC. Then AP sends the GTK and a sequence number together with the another MIC, which is used in the next broadcast frame. Then client confirms that the temporal key are installed. So that's how the temporal key will be installed in the client system. Now what is WPA2? So WPA2 provides enterprise and Wi-Fi users the stronger data protection and network access control. It provides the government grade security by implementing the National Institute of Standard and Technologies NIST FIPS 1402 compliant AES encryption algorithm. Now in this WPA2 we have personal and enterprise both. Now personal uses a set of password, that is pre-shared key PSK, to protect unauthorized network access, and PSK mode, each wireless network at device encrypts the network traffic using a 128 bit key that is derived from the passphrase of 8 to 63 ASCII characters. Then WPA2 Enterprise. In this this includes EAP or radius for centralized client authentication using multiple authentication methods such as token card, Kerberos and certificate authentication. Then users are assigned login credentials by centralized server which they must present when connecting to the network. So the users will be assigned the credential like username and password. For that, when they want to connect, they will provide that username and password. In the personal, they just have to provide the shared key, pre-shared key, and in enterprise, they have to provide the login authentication credential, that is username and password. Now, how this WPA2 works? First, in the CCMP implementation of WPA2, MAC header data is used to build additional authentication data, that is AAT. Then a sequenced packet number PN is used to build a nonce. Then AAD temporal key and nonce along with CCMP are used for data encryption. Then a WPA2 MAC frame is built using the MAC header, CCMP header, encrypted data and encrypted MAC. And you can see here the process also. Now what is the difference between this WEP, WPA and WPA2? So first, WEP uses the encryption algorithm. This is RC4 and initialization vector size is 24 bit and encryption key length will be 40 to 104 bits. And integrity check mechanism, it uses CRC 32 bit. So this WPA uses RC4 with TKIP. For encryption algorithm, it uses IV of 48 bits and encryption key length will be 128 bits. This is more than the normal WEP. Then for integrity, it uses Michel algorithm and also CRC 32 bit. And in WPA2, AES and CCMP used instead of this RC4 for encryption algorithm. It uses the same IV of 48 bit and also it uses the same encryption length of 128 bit. But for the integrity, it uses CBC and MAC. So what we can say that WEP should be replaced with more secure WPA or WPA2. And WPA and WPA2 incorporates protection against forgery and replay attacks. So this is, we can say that this too is secure than WEP. So what is the issue we have with WEP? First, the IV is a 24-bit field is too small and is sent in the clear text portion of the message. So first and most important, it is only 24-bit and also it goes like a clear text. Then identical key streams are produced with the reuse of the same IV for data protection. As the IV is short, key streams are repeated within short time. So it uses the same identical key stream. So it uses the same IV every time. And because the size of the IV is very small, it repeats in very short time. Then lack of initialized key management makes it difficult to change the WEP key with any regularity. Then when there is IV collusion, it becomes possible to reconstruct the RC4 key stream based on the IV of the decrypted payload of the packet. Then IV is a part of the RC4 encryption key, leads to an analytic attack that recovers the key after intercepting and analyzing a relatively small amount of traffic. So basically, if you actually intercept a small amount of traffic, you can easily crack the password for this WEP because of that IV. And its use of RC4 was designed to be a one-time cipher and not intended for multiple messages use. Then no defined method for encryption key distribution. So the key distribution is also not encrypted. Wireless adapters from the same vendor may all generate the same IV sequence, and these enables attacker to determine the key stream and decrypt the cipher text. Then associate and deassociate messages are not authenticated. Then WEP does not provide cryptographic integrity protection. By capturing two packets, an attacker can flip a bit in the encrypted stream and modify the checksum so that packet is accepted. And WEP is based on a password prone to password cracking attacks. Now attacker can construct a decryption table of the reconstructed key stream and can use it to decrypt the WEP packets in a real time. So it is very easy to crack this WEP because of these problems, we can say. And the main problem with this WEP is having, which is weak initialization vector. In the RC4 algorithm, the key scheduling algorithm KSA creates an IV based on the base key. Base key, that means the base pre-shared key. The IV value is too short and not protected from reuse, and no protection against message replay. And then a flow in the WEP implementation of RC4 allows weak IVs to be generated. And the way the key stream is constructed from the IV makes it susceptible to weak key attacks, FSM attack. Then those weak IVs reveal information about the key bytes they were derived from. So they are actually derived from the main key. So these IVs can reveal the information about the main key, that is the main key, to authenticate. So if attacker can get the enough IVs, it can easily guess the key. No effective detection of message tampering, message integrity. So it is not having any integrity feature. So it is easy to do the modifying. It can easily, attacker can easily modify the packets to do the replay attacks. And attacker will collect enough weak IVs to reveal bytes of the base key. It directly uses the master key and has no built-in provision to update the key. So these are the main problem of WEP, and that is why what we use normally, we should use WPA or WPA2, and even in WPA we should use the enterprise version or enterprise type. Now what are the wireless threats we have? So first we have access control attacks. In wireless threats we have access control attacks. These access control attacks aim to penetrate a network by evading WLAN access control measures such as AP MAC filters and Wi-Fi port access control. First there is wall driving, then row access point, MAC spoofing, AP misconfiguration, ad hoc association, Prometheus client misassociation. Then we have unauthorized association also, and these are all called access control attacks. Now what are these attacks? Then also we have integrity attacks. In integrity attacks, attackers send forged control, management and data frames over the wireless network to misdirect the wireless device in order to perform another type of attack. Example, denial of service. So because it is not having an integrity check, it can accept the forged packets also. By using the data frame injection, WEP injection, bit flipping attack, extensible AP replay, data replay, initialization vector replay attack, radius replay, wireless network viruses. So these are all type of integrity attack. Then we have wireless threats of confidentiality attack. These attacks attempt to intercept confidential information sent over wireless association, whether sent in the clear text or encrypted by Wi-Fi protocols. It can do by the eavesdropping, traffic analysis, cracking WEP key, evil twin AP, honeypot access point, hijacking, session hijacking, masked ring, man in the middle attack. Then there is availability attack also. Denial of service attack aim to prevent the legitimate user from accessing resources in a wireless network. and these comes under the availability attack. That means the network will not be available for the legitimate user. So availability attacks are like access point theft, disassociation attack, EAP failure, beacon flood, denial of service, deauthentication flood, routing attack, authentication flood, ARP cache poisoning attack, power saving attack, and TKIP MIC exploit attack. Then under the threats of wireless we have authentication attacks also. The objective of this authentication attack is to steal the identity of Wi-Fi clients, their personal information, login credential, etc. to gain unauthorized access to network resources. So we have the pre-shared key cracking. This will do what? It will do the identity theft. Then leap cracking, it will do the shared key guessing. Then VPN login cracking, that means the password speculation. Domain login cracking will application login theft. Now first there is raw access point attack. Now raw access point attack, that means what? Where we have the normal access point available here, which is legitimate access point of the company, and that SSID, let's for example, is Jaggi Boy and Wi-Fi channel number 6. So this is the legitimate network which is working like this. The name of the Wi-Fi is this, and the channel is working, it is working on channel number 6. Now what raw wireless access point plays into a 802.11 network, and it can be used to hijack the connection of legitimate network user. And when the user turns on the computer, the raw wireless access point will offer to connect with the network user's NIC, and all the traffic that user enters will pass through the raw access point, thus enabling a form of wireless packet sniffing. Now what it is doing here, it is creating, the attacker is creating the raw access point here with the same name here. What is the legitimate company access point here? It has the same name, so same name access point it is created by the attacker. It is saying my SSID is Jaggi Boy. So the access point name is the Jaggi Boy, which is the legitimate company access point name. Attacker will create the raw access point in its own device, and then it says this is my Jaggi Boy, this is my SSID, and you can connect me, and it will make it open so that if any user within the range, like this is the range of this attacker's raw access point, so within the range, if this user is under the range, so it can connect with this raw access point instead of the original access point. Now when the user, this user which is connected to this raw access point, it will send whatever the data, it will go through from this attacker machine, and then attacker can do what? It can sniff the data, it can see the data also. Now remember, for doing this, attacker is close to that company premises. That means it is close to that wall where after that after that wall the company's organization devices are there. So it is very close to that, so that it can exploit the range of that wireless raw wireless access point within the company environment. Then we have client misassociation attack. Now in this, what attacker will do here, attacker sets up the raw access point outside the corporation perimeters and lures the employees of the organization to connect with it. And once the associated, employees may bypass the enterprise security policies. So what it do here, it will create an access point outside of the premises or within the range of the premises and raw access point. Now it is not using the Jaggi Boy, it may use the different name also, or it can use the same name. Now it will do what? It will lure the user to connect with this. Now here is the access point, it says, and when the user try to connect, and if the user is connected to this access point. Now remember, when we configure the access point or we configure the wireless network in our devices are designed, it is configured to connect the device, connect the AP automatically. So if it is the same name, then it will try to connect it directly or automatically to this. And when it is successful, then what attacker can do, or this client can send the data through the access point of attacker, and it can bypass the enterprise security policies. Then misconfiguration access point attack. Now here, what attacker will do here? First, attacker says access points are configured to broadcast the SSID authorized user to authorized user. Remember what SSID are used to configured to broadcast the SSID to the authorized users. Now, weak password. To verify the authorized users, network administrators incorrectly uses the SSIDs as a password. So sometimes what the administrator do for ease of use, they configure the same SSID name as a password, or maybe Wi-Fi password not configured. So this is the misconfiguration of access point, or configuration errors. SSID broadcast is a configuration error that assists intruder to steal an SSID and have the AP assumes that they are allowed to connect. So if the SSID is revealing outside of the premises, and if it is showing to this attacker, so attacker can create the raw access point here, and it can lure the user to connect to this fake SSID. So connecting to Juggy Boy no password, that means it is lucky. And also, what if the misconfiguration is there is no password there, or maybe the same SSID is the password. So everything, these all thing is what the misconfiguration of the administrator. So attacker if uses these things and connect to this AP, like for example it is connecting here to the Juggy Boy, it says no password, wow, lucky me. That means there is no password, the attacker is very lucky. So it is connected here and there, and then what it can do, it can use the AP and it can see all the data of this organization. It can sniff all the data of this organization, and it can also, now it can do the connecting it like it is using no encryption, it can see the data now. So this all is what misconfiguration of the AP, that means weak password or no password, or the SSID is broadcasting to the other side, so or outside of the premises. These all things lead to the attack, and it is called misconfiguration of access point attack. Then unauthorized association. Now in this case, what that means here, attacker can do what? Attackers can send a Trojan to any of that organization user. So attackers soft access point or client card or enabled WLAN radio is in some PDAs and laptops that can be launched inadvertently or through a wireless program. So what attacker do? Attackers send a viruses or try to infect the client by using the social engineering technique, and try to send the Trojan to the wireless to the client machine. And then what the client machine will do, what when the Trojan will install, that client machine will create its own access point. That means that client machines will act as an access point there. And then what attacker do, what attacker infects the victim machine and activate the soft API, software AP. That is not a hardware AP, it is like a software AP. So the victim machine will work as an access point, and that allow them unauthorized connection to the enterprise network. Now by using that unauthorized access point from this user, this victim, attacker connect its machine to that victim AP, and then it will be inside the network, it will be inside of the enterprise network, and attacker connect to the enterprise network through soft AP and instead of the actual access point. So actual access point is this, which is secure, but attacker creates the client machine access point by sending the Trojan horses, by using the social engineering technique, and then what it will connect to that access point, and that is what the unauthorized association. Then ad hoc connection attack. Now in this, ad hoc means what? There is no AP. When you connect two devices directly, so it is called ad hoc infrastructure. So Wi-Fi clients communicate directly via an ad hoc mode, and that do not require an AP to relay packets. So it is not required any AP to do the communication. In this ad hoc mode, two devices, two machines, two Wi-Fi devices can do the communication together without the need of AP. So ad hoc mode is inherently insecure and does not provide strong authentication and encryption. So when you are connecting two devices, there is no need for doing the authentication. So it does not provide any authentication, strong authentication or encryption. So attacker can easily connect to and compromise the enterprise client operating system operating in ad hoc mode. So what attacker can do here, attacker can also convert this victim machine by sending the Trojan. It can convert that machine to enable the ad hoc connection also. Just like it can convert this machine into AP. It can also use the ad hoc connection and then connect its own device into that with that victim machines through the ad hoc connection, and then it can sniff the organization data. Then honeyspot access point attack. Now in this, what attacker do? Attacker traps the victim by using the fake hotspot. Fake hotspot, that means, for example, there is an organization, and within the organization there are some different shops or different shops or different things. Like for example, shop McDonald's is close to the organization building. So what attacker will do? Attacker will go to the close of that building, close of that premises, and it will create a fake raw AP with the name of that McDonald. It is like a honeypot, and it will open this wireless network. Now it will open that access point without any password. Now the users will see that there is open connection, and remember, wherever you see the internet connection or wireless network, user try to connect that. User sees like, okay, this is a chance of using free connection, let's connect that and start using it. So it looks like a genuine McDonald AP, and it is open, free, and it is giving a good speed. So attacker, the victim will do what? It will try to connect that AP by using its enterprise machine. Remember, the machine which is using, it is actually under the enterprise, and it is the organization's machine. So with that machine, it will connect this fake AP. Now what happened? It will try to send the data through this AP, and even it will try to send the enterprise data also through this AP. And when it try to send those data through the AP, that means attacker can decrypt and it can see all those data. It is like a man in the middle attack. So all of those attacks which we have seen till now, like misconfiguration attack, the attacker tries to do what? It tries to try to enter into the organization network so that it can sniff the data. Then AP MAC spoofing attack. For securing the wireless network, attacker can, the administrator can also use one more option. It can do what? It can add the MAC filtering option. MAC filtering, that means only the MAC addresses will be allowed to access that AP. So it will create the list in the access point that will say that these MAC addresses are allowed. So only these MAC addresses will get the internet connection or whatever to connect this AP. So hacker can do what? Hacker can spoof the MAC address of wireless LAN client equipment to mask as an unauthorized as an authorized client. An attacker connect to a AP as an authorized client and eavesdrops on sensitive information. So attacker wants to connect the AP so that it can get the data. It can do the eavesdropping on the organization data. So what attacker do? Attacker first sniff the packets. It can first discover the authenticated, or we can say the genuine MAC address which is allowed to connect it. And then what it do? It will change the MAC address of its own LAN card, wireless LAN card, to that MAC address which is supported, which is allowed. And then what? It will try to connect the AP, and because the MAC address it uses which is allowed to connect, it will also connect to AP, and then it can get the data information from that AP or sensitive information. So hacker is spoofing the MAC address, and that it says like, I am Mac, this is my MAC address, but it is actually this machine's MAC address. It is the production department's, and this is the machine of the production department, and this is having this MAC address. Attacker change its own MAC address to that, and then what? It will send the request here, and it says only computer from production department can connect me. So it is changing the MAC address to that, and then it can connect. and then it can sniff the sensitive data, it can do the eavesdropping of sensitive information. Then denial of service attack. Now in this, attacker sends the deauthentication packet. It can send the deauthentication packet from the spoofing the MAC or spoofing the BSS ID of the genuine AP. So it will do what? It will deauthenticate all the client machine from the AP. So wireless DOS attack disrupt the network wireless connection by sending the broadcast deauthenticate commands, and transmit the deauthentication forces the clients to disconnect from the AP. So it will do what? It will basically send a packet from its own AP or from its own wireless device, and it is called deauthentication packet. Now this packet will go to these client machines, and they will do what? They will deauthenticate from the AP. Now why they will deauthenticate? Because the client will use the BSS ID of the genuine AP. It will spoof the BSS ID of the genuine AP and send the request of deauthentication to the client, and the client will think like, okay, this is coming from the genuine AP, so they will deauthenticate himself and they will disconnect it from the AP. Now why the attacker do this? Because attacker just want to do the denial of service. It just want to stop them to do work, or it want them to redirect to the fake or raw AP. Like attacker has created a raw AP or raw access point, but these clients will not connect to that raw access point, because they are already connected to the genuine. They are already connected to the real access point, so they will not connect to the raw access point. So attacker will do what? Attacker will send the deauthentication packet. So these all client will be released. They will be disconnected from the real AP. Now they will try to reconnect again automatically. Now it can be connected if it is close to the fake raw AP. So it will connect the raw AP, and which client is close to the real AP, it will connect to real AP. It is a matter of a reply, that which AP is sending the quick reply. So this users can be connected to raw AP, and for that attacker will send the deauthentication packet to do the it is a kind of denial of service attack to disconnect the user from the real access points. And under the denial of service attack, attacker can use the jamming attack also, jamming signal attack. And in this, what attacker sends a jamming signal from its own device, and it sends the request for jamming, and it will jam the whole network within the range, and everyone will not able to do anything. Attacker stakes out the area from a nearly location with the high gain amplifier, drawing out the legitimate access point. Users simply can't get through to log in, or they are knocked off their connection by the overpowering nearby signaling. All wireless networks are prone to jamming, so there is no security for any jamming kind of attack. So everyone is prone to it. This jamming signal cause a DOS attack because denial of service attack, because 802.11 in a CSMA/CA protocol, whose collusion avoidance algorithm requires a period of silence before a radio is allowed to transmit. So because these wireless networks are using CSMA/CA, CA means collusion avoidance. So they send the signal first, check the collusion. If the collusion is there, then they will have to wait. So attacker do what? Attacker send the lots of signals there and creates the collusions. So every machine, every device will have to wait unless that collusion will go, and these all machines will stop working. And for doing that, attacker can use these jamming devices. These are different hardware devices which can be used to do the jamming of the signal. Depend on the range they have. So within the range they can jam the whole wireless network. So these are the all threats we have for the wireless network. And what is the wireless network security, and what are the threats of wireless network?